Hi everyone, Brent Davis here today, just doing a quick introduction on this week's episode. We've got a really good episode this week with Ian Peake and had a really cool discussion with him about his coaching and how he goes about it, his research and all sorts of things like that. Just wanted to apologise in advance for a couple of audio issues. I didn't realise when we were recording with Ian that we were getting some feedback from his cable on his microphone. So apologies for that. I've taken out as much as I can, but you can still hear it a bit when he's speaking. But please bear with it. Ian's got a whole heap of great information, and I think you'll find the podcast really worthwhile. So I do apologise in advance for that little audio issue that we had. We also wanted to just give our socials a bit of a plug. So you could find the Coaching Uncovered podcast on Facebook under Coaching Uncovered Podcast. It's on Twitter under Coaching Pod. You can also find it on Instagram on Coaching Uncovered. So I would appreciate if you jump on those and follow the accounts. You can see the updates and the promos come out on that on those channels. We also have an email account. So if you've got any feedback or comments or questions, or you want to talk about who you want to come and talk on the podcast, feel free to send me an email at coachinguncoveredpod@gmail.com, and you can email that anytime, and we can you can send your comments through there and your feedback through there, and we can hopefully get some extra guests on the show. So without any further ado, I will hand you over to the show, and I hope you enjoy this week's episode with Ian Peake. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the Coaching Uncovered podcast. My name is Brent Davis, and I am the host of the podcast. Now, today we are extremely fortunate to have Ian Peake on the line. So thank you, Ian, for coming in and having a chat to us today. Please tell everyone about yourself.
Hi, Brent. Great to be here. My name's Ian Peake. I'm a 51-year-old PG professional, originally from Scotland. I've been overseas, working and living kind of in Central Europe for the last 30 years, full-time golf coach, coach educator since 2004, Brent, and since 2013, pretty much an ongoing part-time student as well, an academic student. So I kind of combine my daily coaching and coaching businesses with I'm a kind of ongoing learner as well. So that's kind of my story to date, yes.
I'm keen to go into your research, because obviously you've taken that pathway as a PGA professional and gone down that research pathway. So you've got a master's degree, is that correct?
Yeah, I've got a master's degree in sports coaching, which I did at the University of Birmingham in England between 2013 and 16. And I've said before, I mean, that really lit my fires. I guess I went to uni for the first time, what was a 43. I think I was the oldest in the class by about 15 years, maybe 20 years. So certainly out of my comfort zone. But the kind of stuff I learned there, the first year really just changed how I saw the game, how I coached, how I saw my family life. And having finished my Masters in 2016, it wasn't enough for me. I really enjoyed the journey. I thought I wanted to keep going. And I started with my Ph.D. in 2017. And that's challenging, getting the balance right between family and work and income, and getting a good balance there, but loving that journey as well. Yeah.
What type of topics did you go down with your research path?
Well, the research path was at the third year of my Masters, my third year of the MSc. And, I've always been interested in success, but always, I guess, with some selfish interest, always non-success. I've always been, I guess, a bit of a thinker, or tried to be a bit of a thinker. And a lot of things one of the things that bothered me a lot was, why wasn't I more successful as a player? So I started as an 11-year-old back in Scotland in 1980. Loved the game. Fell in love with all the facets, the equipment, the tournament results, the golf courses, the history, and wanted to be as good a player as I could be. Very self-driven, very intrinsically motivated. and I was really a pretty poor golfer. You know, I got down to kind of 4 or 5 handicap when I was 15, then didn't improve when I started to put more effort in and became serious. So I turned pro off handicap 5 when I was 18, did my PGA training, which I really enjoyed. Then had a spell as a mini tour player, very average mini tour player as well, and accepted I wasn't very good or good enough by far. You know, as a mini tour player, I learned to shoot under par, but that was about 2-3 under, you know, never good enough. And I always wanted to know why, despite my efforts, was as bad as I was as a professional standard. And so going to my Masters, I thought, well, again, that whole thing, it was a little bit for me in the background. And I knew, looking at the research, there wasn't a lot of stuff out there, or looking at why elite amateurs didn't make the grade. Read all the biographies of the players that make it and the stories. But what about those that don't make it and their story, you know, in hindsight, in retrospect? So with my supervisor, Martin Toms, in England, I kind of tracked down 9 British and Irish elite players, amateur players, all play Walker Cup, you know, the kind of amateur version of the Ryder Cup, and based on GB&I versus the best players in the States. And I got to speak to 9 of them that played between 99 and 2009, and really got to hear their stories, based on their own words, why they didn't make the transition to the pro game. So they've been at the very top of the amateur game in Europe. They had some success in the States, they'd done well down your way in Australia, and they didn't make it to the tour at all, to European tour. One player played 1 season only. As well as those 9, I spoke to a couple of others, but those 9 became my core because they're all playing Walker Cup, were kind of recognised as being the best players in GB&I, in Great Britain and Ireland, and had tried to turn pro and didn't make it. So that was a fascinating year. That really changed how I saw coaching, how I saw what I was doing, and that kind of gave birth to a couple of new businesses and now my PhD as well.
It seems to be a common theme that players that go, or coaches that go into that research realm, whether it's a formal education like you or whether it's just studying golf swing more, seem to come at it from a point of view that they're trying to improve their own game. So it seems to be that type of person, it tends to appeal to that type of person who has grounded out to get to where they got to, and then wants to find the reason why they couldn't make that next step. So that certainly appeals to me, because I'm on that same path as you. I was a player, but I was not anywhere near good enough to be a tour player. So,
yeah, doesn't that suck?
It does. I was the same as you. I found out really quickly that there's way too many good players out there that are a heap better than I am. So that is certainly a true story. So how did you find that your experiences playing and grinding it out has impacted you as a coach as you've gone along?
Oh, good question. I mean, again, if I look back at as I say, wannabe player, as a junior, and then as a very average mini tour player, I think there's a couple of things, Brent, there, again, based on the research and what I'm fairly sure about now. So first of all, let's say I lacked the physical gifts, okay? I was fairly sporty, but that whole picking a club up and hitting the ball well, easily, I kind of had to work at it. So I think there was definitely in the kind of nature camp, let's say talk about nature, nurture. In the nature camp, my elevator didn't go to the top floor, okay? You know, you'd go to junior tournaments and you'd see my colleagues hitting the ball further and better, shaping the ball better. So there's definitely some natural gifts weren't there, you know, which is okay. And then if we look at the nurture, I definitely, the support team was missing as well, which I didn't know at that time. My mum and dad supported me, but were non-golfers. My coach really didn't care. I guess I didn't show the kind of signs that he really kind of went the extra yard for me, which was I accept as well in hindsight. So really, I struggled on the nature and the nurture side. And I did my best. I loved it. A lot of my learning journey was perfect. And I had a lot of buddies that played, easy access. There was loads of competition. Golf was on TV. The game was cheap to play. And actually, between my home and the golf course was a golf equipment company that manufactured golf clubs. And I could stop off there on the way to the golf course, buy a club at a time for £5. What was that? $8 or $7, whatever it was. So there was loads of great stuff. And we know how tough it is to make the game anyway. But certainly, in hindsight, I was short on nature and nurture to become as good as I wanted to become. But then, as you and I both know, the answer is, well, how much can the nurture make up for the nature? This is the great debate we always have. Are great players born? Or are they made? And that's kind of where I'm at now with my PhD and my research, looking at players that have made the European Tour. I can't unfortunately talk about it. It would be unethical at the moment. That's kind of my ongoing journey to compare their stories to their colleagues that didn't make it.
Yeah, I would tend to think, and obviously I haven't seen your research yet, or I would definitely think I've shifted how I thought. I definitely thought nature had a bigger role than what it has, but I think we can certainly override nature with some hard work. I think I'm definitely more in the nurture camp at the moment.
Oh, me too as well. I've got to say, and again, leaving my PhD studies to one side, which would be unethical for me to talk about, but just before that, the 5 years before that, I spoke to a lot of tour players off the record, just chats and snippets, and looked at other webcasts. And the social support, we all go on a journey as coaches, as I know you're a dad as well, as parents. And the social support is massive. The right social support is, I think, in a lot of aspects of life. So there's personal drive, understanding your why is fantastic as an individual. Maybe implicitly as a young player, just loving the game is fantastic, that intrinsic motivation. But having good support around you is massively influential as well. That could be mentors, people you look up to, your peers, your parents, your coach, a school teacher, loads of aspects that kind of come together that I think can, from what I've found and seen in the research in the past, can certainly put nature in the background as far as golf goes.
It's interesting you say about that support group around them. We had Jason Hellman on the podcast just recently, and he has got some pretty serious junior programs going, and he was talking about dealing with the parents and getting the parents on the same page as what the coach is and what the kids are. And I would think that would be extremely important as a coach to make sure that the whole support team is on the same page and working towards that goal, and they're all saying the same things, because you can certainly do a fair bit of damage as a parent if you're not coaching the right way, so to speak.
Yeah, without doubt. It's I say I'm lucky enough now to advise a number of coaches, support, kind of mentor, be in the kind of backroom format in the corner. And one of the things I'll say is, you need the parents on side, and you know that when you become a parent yourself. Because you love your kids, you want the best for them. But we don't know if my son was going to say to me, Dad, I want to be a professional footballer. I have no idea what it takes to be a pro footballer. So I would certainly need the coach, or look for the coach to help me fill in the blanks. And the same with golf. So the coaches I kind of support now in the back, in the corner, for them, I'll say, need the parents on side. Parent education, have open evenings, get them involved, talk through your program, talk through the research about behind successful sports parents. WhatsApp groups, get them all involved, get them online in the group, and watch the interaction, be involved yourself, and help guide the parents to become the ideal sports parents they become. Not all will join in. Not all will be open for, let's say, the coach influences or the coach advice. But certainly, I think coaches, we do need the parents in the room. We need the parents in the tent with us to help the athletes reach their potential, have fun along the way, and enjoy the journey.
Yeah, for sure. It's extremely important to have those parents on side, because if they're not, the parents certainly have more pull than the coach as a general rule, so they'll tend to override what the coach is saying. So, extremely important to get them on the same side as the coach. So
yeah, and Brent. Sorry, just briefly there. Sorry, I mean, and for younger coaches, I'm still wearing 50 on, and I'm just scratching the surface, but you can learn a heck of a lot from parents as well. You'll have parents that'll come in, maybe they've been a sports coach, maybe they've been a businessman or a businesswoman, and they can help you with the structure. So having them on board is a great advantage as well, not just to help them, but they can help us through their experiences in life as well.
Yeah, for sure. It can be a win-win situation between having the parents on side or fighting against you.
Absolutely.
Now, well, I've heard you speak a few times. You've done some work for the Australian PGA over the last couple of years, doing some presentations, and you've got a couple of terms on your website that are not traditional golf coaching terms that I would think. So I'm interested to hear what is transition coaching and performance coaching, and what the difference is between the two, and why do you advertise it as that type of coaching as opposed to the normal coaching terms that golf pros tend to use?
Yeah, great. I mean, again, goes back to my master's study and that kind of learning curve or learning mountain I went up when I did my master's in 2016. So if I look at that study, my master's in the 9 Walker Cup players and their non-success and their stories why. So they were in transition. And transition is basically a kind of major change in your life. It could be us becoming parents, losing a parent, changing jobs, moving home. And certainly a major transition is from when an amateur turns pro. That is a change of lifestyle, that's a change of how they see the world. And with transition, so that transition business I developed was to help athletes, footballers I've helped in the past, going into retirement, golfers turning professional. I've assisted a few business people who are looking to change career path. That is negotiating that change of status or change of position in life, Brent. Right? So transition is me about helping athletes get there. Either let's go from amateur golf to professional golf, and a couple of footballers I've helped with was going from playing to retiring. And the business people I've helped was basically them retiring or changing career track. Okay. And within the transition, I've got kind of one major academic. I go back to Natalia Stambulova, who's a Russian professor now up in Sweden. And she is kind of one of the godfathers, mothers, whatever you want to call it, of the transition process in sport. And she's got a fairly similar, but a fairly simple, very hard-hitting formula for creating or making successful transition. And the formula is for every barrier an athlete perceives, there needs to be a coping resource or solution to that barrier. Okay? And I guess a little more complicated. And the other part of the kind of formula looks at the holistic nature of learning, which is, that how we live. That's the biopsychosocial model. So let's say, let's talk about E and peak. So I have my biology, which is my fitness, my movements. Let's say how I swing the golf club. My psychology is how I see the world, how I see my golf game as a player, how I envisage myself going forward. And my social side, again, is all the people around me, Brent. Okay? Mm-hmm. And that, for me, is the holistic side of coaching. This is kind of what I do when I advise my clients and my players and my business people around me. So the big map of my life, this life jigsaw, consists of my biology, my psychology, and my social world or sociology. Okay? And if I'm going to transition from amateur to pro golf, I need to be aware as a player, an athlete, what are the barriers for me to make the successful transition? A typical barrier I've had in the past would be, let's say a player doesn't hit the ball far enough to turn pro. He knows his stats, let's call it a young guy, and he hits it 250 yards. And we know that's kind of 50 yards too short to probably make it on tour nowadays, going forward. Okay? So as long as he hits it 250, it's unlikely he will make the tour. That's the barrier. So the coping resource is, what can we do for this player to gain substantial length? Part of it may be looking at his TrackMan numbers with the driver, maybe getting stronger, improving his mechanics. But the point that Stambulova goes back to, and things I use in my transition coaching, is if he is aware, or she, I don't hit the ball far enough, if that bothers them, we need to find a solution for that so it no longer bothers them. Right?
Yep.
Sociology, you could say a similar player, let's say an elite athlete, a girl, and she's having problems with a boyfriend or a partner. Its impact on the performance. As long as that problem is there, and she turns pro and the boyfriend doesn't want her to travel, wants her to stay at home, that stone in her shoe, Brent, will, as a barrier, will stop her getting on the tour. So we need to find a solution with the boyfriend, with the partner, to allow her to go and play happily. And the great thing with Stambulova, she's a fantastic lady, was her kind of great, for me, her great influence is we need to find solutions to all the barriers. And then transition happens basically when the pathway is as clear as possible, and the pathway is determined by the player. If the player says, I think this is an issue for me, this is giving me trouble, we need to find a solution for that barrier. Okay?
Yeah.
With performance coaching, it's different. They look at players at the top of their game and say, okay, how can we stay at the top of your game? So these are people on the tour, playing professional football, got a big business. But also with them, we look at their biopsychosocial model, look at the pieces of the model, and say, okay, what's working well? Where do you feel it might be a little bit creaky? What do we need to do to stay ahead of the game? So it could be further education. It could be better staff engagement. It could be having more time off, because generally when top business people have time off, they become more creative and have better ideas. It could be involving their understudy more on the day-to-day side of the business to allow them to kind of pass on some responsibility. So in a nutshell, transition coaching is helping people make the step ahead. And performance coaching is about those at the top of the game. What do they need to do through their own eyes to stay ahead of the game? What are the kind of little extras, the kind of marginal gains we can put into place to keep them ahead of the rest?
No, that makes sense, and that's certainly a complete coaching process, which is really cool. Probably the biggest thing that jumps out at me straight away is if you're going to do that type of coaching, which is what we should be doing if we are going to be high-quality coaches, is you need to understand the person standing in front of you. You need to have a clear understanding of who that person is and what issues they may have or what problems they may have, or it isn't just about golf swing anymore. It's all about the other stuff that gets in the way.
It's not, I mean, again, I've got to keep myself in check sometimes. If you have this bias and you have a kind of blind spot elsewhere, and I'll come back to something just in a second, but without doubt, in my opinion, my research kind of racking my head every day, the better player becomes, the more we need to become aware of the other stuff off the course.
Yeah.
Even if it's on course, what's happening on course, the reaction to a bad shot, the interaction with a caddy, if it's a junior player, the presence of their parents at tournaments, their equipment, the influence of the golf union, the influence of the coach, the influence of the S&C coach, how are the golf coach and the S&C coach working together? Is there a power struggle between the caddy and the coach? Is there a power struggle between the coach and the management company? So certainly equipment, mechanics are always there. The biopsychosocial means biological, means how do I move the club, how do I putt, how do I chip? That's all part of the equation. But in my experience and my research, the more elite a player becomes, the more the coach and the player need to be aware of what about the other stuff. What about the psychological stuff? What about the social stuff? Who's my team? How does it work together? Who's the right kind of caddy for me? What are the changing roles of my coach? How do I balance between my life partner and my parents? Who becomes more influential? So it is a minefield. It's a jigsaw with 1,000 pieces. And yes, I agree. While keeping my balance, my biases in check, a coach, in my opinion, going forward, would need to be involved in the big picture of the player to understand how performance really happens.
Yeah, for sure. Now, is there a sport out there that does this really well, or are they all kind of struggling with this?
Again, I don't know about sports. I mean, I've got to say, I think there's some great stuff happening in Canada within golf. Yep. And again, there's some great stuff in the UK because I'm aware of the research. You Australians have got some great researchers as well. I think generally, sport has a long way to go. And, I'm not pointing fingers or bullets. I'm as guilty as anyone. But certainly, I think sports coaching, in my opinion, this is the next frontier. I listen to a lot of podcasts now. I'm out jogging most days. And even hearing a lot of experienced coaches, they're talking about biomechanics and 3D and force plates. It's nice, Brent, but that's not the future. We know that already. Yeah. The future is, in my opinion, the holistic nature of who we are. And I think you and I have talked a couple of times in the past about children. And if there's one thing that makes you appreciate the big picture of development, it's having kids and being around kids. And you see that whole interaction of how they're learning, how they fit into the world, how they're seeing the world, and our involvement with them as parents, as loving parents.
Do you think as a sport, golf is going to struggle with this because of the fact that it's been an individual sport for so long? It's always kind of been the player, and then it's kind of shifted to the player and the coach. And do you think it's going to be hard for us to take on that team type of setup as golf?
Well, I think it's happening already. Again, if we go back a couple of steps, and you and I discussed, think back to our past. So you and I became PG professionals. We both loved the game as players, and we did our PGA training, which is great. And obviously, when we become coaches, we bring our past with us, and we bring our education with us. And I'm involved now with the PGAs of Europe and the PGA of Great Britain and Ireland in education, as well as with yourself in Australia, and I do some stuff with Canada, which is great. So, but certainly we're all based. Our kind of output is based on our past, what we've learned. So I think the big thing going forward is that as our education programs evolve, this kind of stuff will become more standard. I hope to help along the way in some small way as I can. And I say the mechanics will remain part of the package. Without doubt, the ball is going to fly from A to B in some way. But the big picture of coaching, I think, will become more standard just as our education improves and evolves. And I see it happening already. And obviously a great thing, if you see Justin Rose talking about his team, or that top players discussing, Sean Foley talking about his interaction with other people within Justin Rose's team. So things are changing and improving. It's certainly not mainstream because it hasn't been in our education kind of forefront. I think it's coming. I'm sure it's coming. It's there. The education's there. The research is there. I hope I can help a little bit in the years to come.
Yeah, I certainly think it is that generational change. So the players, the coaches coming out of the training programs now will be across this type of stuff from the start, basically. So I think there'll be a lot more of this stuff coming out there as we go along. So I really like those ideas, and I'm going to be stealing a few of those for my own coaching, I think. So I'll be definitely going down that pathway as well.
Well, a couple of things. There's nothing new. I mean, I'm just passing on what I've learned and my own experiences on it. So I'm happy to share with any of your listeners via Twitter or via your good self in the future. And something I would say as well for all coaches, to get the kind of big picture, just sit down privately with your students and say, tell me about your golf and tell me how you see your golf. Tell me how you see me as a coach, and then just listen. And, the students, doesn't matter if they're 16 or 66, they will probably surprise a lot of coaches with what they say. They'll say, what do you like about my coaching? What don't you like about my coaching? And then give them a chance to reply and wait and let them talk for as long as they want. And it'd be I think a lot of coaches would be surprised with what the athletes say are key helpers with them on their journeys. So I would say to your listeners, try that, and you may be surprised in the feedback, and that should obviously help the coach, guide the coach to how they can help the players best, the athletes best.
Yeah, no, that is great advice, and we'll certainly get to more of those questions as we go along. But you also offer online coaching programs. So you do that for coaches and for players, or just for coaches?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, it's interesting. I've been in coach education since 2004, and it's been a fantastic journey, and it's also always pushed me to continue to learn. I don't think you can go and do coach education unless you're kind of an avid learner yourself. Otherwise, your message will become boring. People have heard it before, so you need to keep pushing the dial to learn new material to be able to pass on to your clients. And I had a bit of an aha effect, or a bit of an epiphany back in 2018 when I saw a few of my face-to-face seminars weren't taking place, and I asked my clients, have I done something wrong? What's happened? I said, no, it's the birth of the podcast and the webinar, as you and I are talking today. And none of us have got enough time. We're all busy. We all want to be flexible. And so that was my decision in 2018, really to transfer a lot of my FaceTime seminars I've done in Holland or Germany or Switzerland or wherever, Dubai, to online, as we are talking today. And I kind of was forced into it. Let's say necessity is the mother of all invention. I just saw a couple of seminars weren't happening. I thought, okay, it's time to change. So I started, last year, end of 18, early 19, to do my online stuff. And I have a number of clients who are on a monthly package for support. These are coaches, players. I do, on-demand consultancy sessions with management companies, people within the golfing federations, just looking for little bits of advice regarding development and performance, transition, and staying at the top of the game, and really enjoy it. As myself, did a webinar last night. I've got a course at the moment called The Essential Guide to Coaching with 33 clients, and we did a webinar last night. And again, looking at the big picture of coaching, really enjoy that. And then we have, similar to our discussion today, we have chats in between sessions to make it personal, find out the needs of each individual client. And that's coaches and players, almost everyone involved within the golf industry, and a few people out with as well, just looking at transition and optimizing their performance.
Now, that is awesome. I just think it's, in this day and age, everyone wants everything on demand and everything wants to be able to access anything anywhere they want to go. So that ability to get coaching, whether it's as a coach from a different coach or as a player from a coach as well, anywhere you want and at any time is really cool. So I'd certainly like that idea.
Well, I mean, again, your podcast, I was going to go back before, just a quick one, and how things change. So at the start of this year, I was aware of my going off in one direction with my studies, and it was all a bit psycho and socially based, psychology and sociology. You need to get back to some other stuff. And the advent of the podcast, now listen to your podcast as well, on the go, if you're out for a jog in the morning, different information. So that's been great as well for my ongoing education. So again, what you're doing here is great for me. Again, on demand, I can listen to your podcast, other podcasts when I want, without having to take a day off and travel or fly to hear someone speak. So I think that's the future, as we know. The future's here now.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And I get a chance to speak to really good coaches from around the world, so that's always a good thing for me as well. So I get to steal information and steal people's ideas, which is really cool.
I say there's nothing. I don't think there's too much original nowadays. We're all just sharing.
Yeah, no, and I think it's, and I've always found, and I'm assuming you've always found the same thing, that the good operators in the world are always happy to share their information. I've had great experience with high-profile coaches being happy to share things and talk about coaching all the time, which is really great.
Yeah, it's funny, you know. I say if I've been involved in coach education for 15 years, the people that come to my seminars, the people that sign up to my webinars, they don't need it. It's you know, it's like they're just filling up the tank, which is already full. I mean, we all need it, but it's like the ladies and gents that are really struggling business-wise, they're not online. They don't come to the courses. And it is, you know, what's the word? It's that kind of that beautiful circle of going round and round. They tend to be at the top of the game anyway. Adding to the skill sets takes them further ahead. And it is, you know, when I put a webinar, seminar, and the people sign up, I'm always kind of chuffed or humbled who signs up. I think, wow, you're at the top of the game already. If we can help you a little bit, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and that is probably the frustrating thing about coach education is the fact that the guys that do need it the most are the ones that don't tend to come out and do it. It's the ones that are already at the top that are doing that extra training as well. So no, that is certainly true. So we're just about out of time, Ian. I think we've flown through this. This has gone really, really well. So thank you again for your time today. But I've got a fast 4 questions that I ask everybody that comes on the podcast. So I think you've covered off on some of it as we've gone through the chat. But I wouldn't mind getting your thoughts on these questions. So advice for coaches starting out. What would be the best piece of advice you could give to a coach that's starting out in the golf coaching field?
A couple of things. Your why will change given time, but what really ticks your boxes? What do you really enjoy as a coach? I think for most new coaches, I understand it would be elite players hoping to become a tour coach, elite juniors, that's fine. So if you identify your why, really know what turns me on as a coach. And if I identified your why, look for mentors and role models you can go and visit and see or learn from. See, there's nothing new. And that will help speed up your learning process massively. Don't just go to one, but go to a couple, 2, 3, 4. You know, be prepared to pay for the experience, and that will fill up your knowledge box as quick as you can do. So I say that would be 2 things. Identify what you really love, and to grow your skills in that area, seek out mentors and role models that can really help you move on as quick as you can. And your why will change, that's great. But really to speed up your knowledge, get lots of practice and lots of observation, and ask lots of questions of those that kind of have trodden the path before you.
Now, that seems to be a common answer to that question is spending time with high quality coaches. I think that makes a huge difference out there. And as we've said through the whole podcast today, it's so easy to access people's information these days. You can get it online. You can talk to people. You can hear them on podcasts. You can hear them present online. There is zero excuse for not getting out there and seeing how different guys do it. So certainly great advice there.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And again, maybe look for contradictions as well. Brendan's nice, you know, like if you look at one guy's school of thought and then look at the other side, they're different. Okay, what's best for me? Are they both right? So I guess be critical as well. You know, nicely critical. Look at the experts and why does he do that? Why does someone do something else? And through that kind of mix of information, kind of form your own formula, as it were, your own kind of brand, your own style. Yeah, through those experiences. Yeah,
which is great. There's you'll always come across golf coaches that do things that you don't agree with, but there'll be a situation where you'll find yourself in front of a student and something that person did that you didn't agree with will work for that student, I think. So it's certainly good to be across all the different schools of thought out there when it comes to golf coaching. So on from that, advice for golfers out there. So hopefully we'll get a few golfers tuning into the podcast as well. So what's the best piece of advice for the golfers out there trying to improve their games?
In my opinion at this stage, get your coach, and have them watch you play 9 holes. That would be my start point. So you want to improve your game, you go to your coach, I want to get down from handicap 18 to 12. Let the coach go and walk 9 holes with you. Just observe. They maybe video you, take notes, ask a few questions. And that first 9 holes will give the coach so much relevant information to improve the game. Don't start on the range. Don't start with a video lesson. If you want to improve your handicap, you want to improve your on-course performance, let the coach watch you play. And from that 9-hole observation lesson, then the coach will have a formula plan which could last easily 6 to 8 months. Then you work out your plan with the coach, how much time do you have to play and practice, and what have been the steps to improve, and what's kind of your long-term goal for getting better. Start on the course, let the coach watch you, and from that first experience, those 9 holes or 6 holes, then let the coach develop an improvement plan based on your on-course performance.
I think that's great advice. I find with my own students that they get on the driving range and they haven't got a target and they swing differently, they play differently. But when they're on the golf course, they're trying to score, and you tend to see what is really going on and which part of their games are stronger and which part of their games are the weakest.
Yeah, absolutely. On-course stuff. If the goal is to improve your handicap, you can only do it on the course. You can only do it in a tournament. Let your coach watch you play, and from there, with all due respect, he'll have a mini book full of good tips and improvements that he'll put into place step by step over the course of your learning journey.
I've always found it interesting as a coach and as a sport in golf that it's probably one of the only few sports where you actually start on a practice area as opposed to starting on the playing area. So if you
that's a whole new podcast, Brent.
It is, because if you start playing cricket, you play cricket. If you start playing football, you play football on the ground, and then you do some training as you go along. But essentially, all the training is done on the sporting arena. Whereas in golf, we tend to go to the practice range to learn how to play, as opposed to going onto the golf course to learn.
Oh dear. And there is that big disconnect between the range and the course, a different environment. We talk about ecological psychology, dynamic systems theory, all the good stuff. It says, you will become the player you are depending on your background, where you're playing, the size of the basketball court. And if you're a big range player, in my opinion, you'll become better on the range, but there'll be a minimal transfer or a smaller transfer to the course than you wish. And on the tour player hits 500 balls, he then goes and plays 18 holes. And I see that, as a range owner, I own the range at my facility here in Germany. And rightly or wrongly, I spend half my time chasing people onto the course. They get off, go and play now. Go and take the car for a spin on the racetrack. Just don't stay in the pits. Take it out there and test it. And again, go back to how elite players learn, and asking the journeys almost all start on the course and find the range later on to fine tune the mechanics to improve. But those early learning experiences to become, let's say, an elite standard, they've mostly been on course, on track, as with the footballer, as with the basketball player. It's almost kind of too obvious to have that in denial. But yeah, the range. See, the birth of the range was maybe the death of a lot of good golf. Yeah,
I think we should park that topic, and we might come back to it at a different stage, because it could become a 3-hour podcast if we start going down that path. So, no, that was I brought it up, so it was certainly my fault. So, would you change anything in your career path? So, would you do, if you had the chance to go back and change something, would you do anything differently as you've gone through?
It's kind of tough. You don't know what you don't know. I guess the only thing I would say now is, being a 51-year-old doing a PhD, I guess if I could have gone to uni a bit quicker, not from school because the option wasn't there, but maybe when I was maybe mid-30s, I would have said it been further ahead. But saying that, what I was doing at that time was good fun as well. I was doing developed golf training aids and had a good business with that. I was learning a lot from other golf coaches. So I think the only thing I would say is maybe now having 3 small children, if I'd gone to uni earlier to do my PhD, it would have been easier. But I've had a great run. I'm the luckiest guy on earth. So on the whole, I'm having a great career and I love what I'm doing. And my basket's full. My glass is 98% full. So I'm a lucky guy.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And being a 44-year-old golf pro doing his PhD as well, I certainly get where you're coming from, and that would probably be the biggest change I would make as well. I would tend to go into tertiary study earlier than I did as well. So I certainly get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's part of the education. The more and more of us are doing it now, and that will change, I think, help golf coach education hopefully move on. More guys like yourself and myself. There's a few great guys here in the UK doing PhD studies as well. That'll maybe start to roll the ball on coach education as well, that will go into higher education, tertiary education more often and quicker. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So, final question with the podcast is,
yes,
and you've answered this as you've gone along pretty much as well, but anything you'd like to add? So, where do you see yourself and the coaching field in 5 years' time?
Well, again, I hope I can help in that small piece of performance and transition, looking at our athletes as complicated individuals as we are. So the mechanical stuff, it will always be there, that's fine, but improving golfing performance by looking at almost all of our athletes holistically. So as a coach, I would be aware of some of the psychology of the game and of my clients, as well as the social positioning, how their kind of social life is, and tying those pieces together to help improve performance. And I hope that's the way the golf industry can go, coaching can go. That's my passion. And I hope to help a little bit on that journey of making golf coaching more holistic and viewing every player as an individual, as a complex individual, rather than someone moving a golf club.
Yeah, no, that is great. And hopefully people like yourself will be pushing golf coaching down that pathway for years to come. So I certainly am excited for how much your research and passion for coaching is there, and hopefully it'll continue to evolve over time as you find more things to study and research, and we'll keep improving the coaching process.
Yeah, I think, try my best. And I've always loved learning. That's the big thing, learning is passing it on. Learning's, for me, awesome. Learning new stuff is nothing more exciting within my day-to-day work than learning new materials. I didn't know that before, and how does that fit into my kind of coaching?
No, that's really cool. So thank you so much for your time today, Ian. I really appreciate it. Where can people find you if they're going to hunt you down?
Yeah, it'd be great. I'm probably best found on Twitter at Ian Peak Coaching, or one word, all written together. Otherwise, tandpcoaching.com is my website. T&P, all one word, tandpcoaching.com is my website as well.
No, that's good. I'll put some links in the description for the episode so everyone can find you, and can check out your online coaching programs. There's a few Australians doing it at the moment I know of, so hopefully they're getting some good value out of it. So again, Ian, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and
my pleasure.
We'll have to get you back on at some stage to delve into a bit more of that on-course coaching as opposed to range coaching.
Yeah, my pleasure. Brent, enjoyed it.
It was great. Thanks, mate. Speak soon.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.